Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, and today I am joined by Matt of Fellowship, who just put out their second album, The Skies Above Eternity, off of Scarlet Records. Matt, thank you so much for joining me. Congratulations on the new record. How are we doing this evening?
Thank you so much for the kind words. Absolutely stoked to be here. Pretty good day, pretty good day. It's freezing where I am, so I haven't like done anything except sit in my little corner of the room for the
Yeah,
entire day. But other than that, everything's grand.
I'm in the northern US, so we are at -4 Celsius right now, and it's just gonna get colder. So
Yeah, similar vibes.
yeah. Um, so the album has been out for almost a week now. We're
Mhm.
recording this on a Wednesday, so came out last Friday. Uh, how thrilled are you to finally have this sophomore release of yours out to the public?
Oh, it's so good. There's kind of always this question when you release a first album that's
Hmm.
like pretty well received. Is that it? Like, are you just gonna
Yeah,
like? There are so many options. You pump out more of the same, and it just feels like it hasn't moved, or you're always trying to like keep up with your first album. One of my favorite bands of all time is Say Anything, and they're one of those bands who like released their first album, and every fan of theirs ever since has
yeah.
just been like, can you do the first album again? And we just like this sort of album as like something of a sort of slight departure from what album one was.
Mhm.
And in addition, like us trying to sort of prove, there's way more to us than just that one album. Like we're not just a flash in the pan, we're here to stay. And all of those sort of ideas, really, it's just like a huge burden lifted. And to hear that people seem to really dig the album is
Yeah.
always lovely. So
Yeah, I remember 2 years ago when you did put out the Saberlight Chronicles and people really liked the record. It was really well received. A blog I follow, Angry Metal Guy, gave it a
mm.
5, which is not something that they give out often. Um, were you surprised by the reception it got?
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
We knew that. So when we released like Glint and the first couple of songs, there
Mhm.
was a lot of clamoring to sort of jump on the bandwagon.
Mhm.
A couple of songs that were just like doing well. Clearly, the Glint meant a lot to people kind of overnight, and that was really cool. But it was very surreal,
Mhm.
that so many people cared about this one song. And similar to this album, sort of having pressure on it from the last one, the first album had a lot of pressure on it from that first EP, and I don't
Mhm.
think this feeling's going to go away. But when it came out and it was seemingly received as well as like we had dreamed that it might be,
Yeah.
crazy. It was such a weird time to hear so many nice things said about stuff that we've just been like burying our heads in the sand to work on for at that point like nearly 3 years.
I remember watching that Gwent video and seeing that Herman Lee of Dragon Force commented on it.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah. Uh,
I mean, Herman's been super nice to us.
yeah.
He and his partner reached out to us like super early days. I think
Wow.
before even the first album. And they were just like, if you want any advice on how to operate here, how to like, anything in the industry that seems weird to you, and you're just like, is this real? Are we being swindled? Anything like that? Just send us an email.
Awesome.
So yeah, I can't say I'm friends with the guy yet, but like it's coming, like I can dream.
Now, take me back. You formed in, I believe, 2019, if I'm
Yeah.
correct. How did you all come together and say, "Hey, let's start a power metal band"? From according to like a little digging, a few of you were in like this thrash band named Resin Wolf, but like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that wasn't me. I'm not a
yeah.
not a thrash guy. Um, but back in the day, our drummer and our now lead guitarist,
Yeah,
original rhythm guitarist Brad, and the bassist were all in Resin Wolf.
yeah.
And they made like anti-conservative thrash music
Hell
for
yeah.
several years. You could go find like their albums available wherever you want it. Like you can go and see the other side of what became Fellowship eventually.
Yeah,
Um, they existed, they died as a band, and then they
yeah.
were on hiatus. And then a few years later, our drummer met our old lead guitarist, Sam.
Mhm.
And I think they were just playing the same gig or something. And they ended up just chatting and realizing that they had very similar ideas of what they liked in a band or in music and sort of wanted to achieve. So they started writing power metal together.
Mhm.
Cue 18 months of looking for a vocalist. And then eventually Sam found me on a sort of Tinder for musicians after my band died. I was in a prog
Yeah.
band before that. That went on hiatus, and I was like, let's have a laugh. Let's join this weird little power metal band that's never
Yeah.
recorded anything. It'll be a fun couple of weeks. Turned up in the studio, met them on the day we recorded Glint, and the rest is history.
Now you mentioned Brad taking over lead guitar duties. I
Hmm.
did notice watching the newer music videos that you are now at least on, your public facing side, a four piece now. I still hear two guitars. Is there
Yeah.
something do you have like another person kind of recording that, or do you plan
So
to have a live musician when you go touring?
Sam, who
Yeah.
is our original lead guitarist, doesn't
Hmm.
play with us live, and he
Okay.
doesn't do any of the like promo stuff. He doesn't do anything like public facing, just personal stuff. Prefers it like this, at least for now.
Sure.
So we accommodate him in any way we can. We love Sam to bits, and he still writes. So like three of the songs on the new album are Sam songs,
Hmm.
five of them are Cal songs, and that's how we've always done things. But Brad is the one playing live, and in the videos where Brad is playing the lead solo anyway,
Yeah.
Brad will be doing that when we play live because we could probably get like a replacement guitarist, but I don't think it would feel sort of right to us. Like Sam is still in the band, like Sam is in the band.
Okay.
He just doesn't do the live stuff, and I don't think it would feel right to us, at least not now. So we just have the like backing guitars in the backing, and then we have the lead stuff played live.
Hmm. Awesome. That makes sense. Uh, Back in August, you closed out Mad with Power Fest here in the US. Can you talk me through that experience?
Oh, it's still surreal in
Yeah.
the most like tangible way. That even happened.
Yeah.
We like whenever you join a band, because I've been in loads of bands in my life, and you always like turn up, you start recording stuff, and you're like, oh, this could go places, and it never does, never,
Yeah.
ever, ever. And then suddenly these things are actually happening to us. Someone paid for us to fly across the world to do 90 minutes of music. Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had the best time possible. That everyone at Mad with Power um, fills the bracket of being like the nicest people we have met.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is glorious and wonderful and kind and inclusive and just like all of the things that you hear in fellowship music about like sort of self-affirmation and being kind to one another and joy and all of these cringe things that I'd like to sing about, you
Yeah.
find in the people at Mad with Power. Every single one.
I love to hearing that this experience happens here in the States because there is this like notion that power metal is a very European thing that doesn't really
Oh yeah.
sell here. But I don't think that's true. Maybe like in terms of like, I mean, the fans are in the States, maybe not per capita, but I still
Mhm.
think there is an audience here.
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, we're looking at America as something that we don't have on the books yet, but like we're absolutely looking at coming back. We really, really want
Hmm.
to do more places in America. We know that there's an audience now. We turned up and they sang along to every word,
Yeah.
and that's, only in Madison. So there are definitely more people we can find and bring to shows and get into
Yeah.
the like fellowship, as it were.
So
Sorry, that was I shouldn't say things like that. That's too twee. That's sentimental, horrible.
I loved it. Um, Listening to the record, I think my favorite lyric on the entire album is when you say Maxim and vulnerable but self-impaired, no one ever loved without first being scared. Can you tell me what exactly was going through your head when you penned that line? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's I loved writing the lyrics to Dawnbreaker because it's
yeah,
one of those like it's such a poppy song. It's
right.
such a like disco tune. But it's equally it has this like melancholy to it. It's got
Hmm.
this little something where in the verses at least I can get a little bit deep. So it's kind of to explain what like Maxim invulnerable but self-impaired really means, you sort of need
Yeah.
to go to the beginning of that verse, which is the blood writes its songs and its ardor sings.
Hmm.
Um, this is about like when I say the blood writes its songs, what I'm really talking about there is like the part of me that sort of has to create and that I can't really deny. It's like an addiction. I'm one of those people where if I'm not making something, I'm just losing my mind, and I get really like the closest that I get to experiencing the sort of like real depression that people talk about is when
Sure.
I am not making something. And this song is, and the album as a whole is very much about like the dark, it's sort of analogous to the dark places that people go to
Sure.
when they're experiencing depression or feeling isolated or anxious, particularly about isolation.
Yeah.
Um, and all of like my experiences with that are to do with when I don't allow myself to just make stuff and collaborate with people. That's how I find my like human connection is by
Right.
making stuff with people. So the Blood Writes Its Songs is like me sort of talking about myself, going like the thing that writes the songs isn't me. It's like this thing within me that hungers to do this. Um, and then Maxim Invulnerable is so the Maxim is no one ever loved without first being scared.
Yeah.
Um, and when I say it's invulnerable, what I mean is that it's like ironclad. It's always true. So Maxim Invulnerable, but self-impaired is this thing is true, but I wish it wasn't because it
Mm.
hurts me the fact that it is true. No one ever loved without first being scared. And
Yeah.
that's like I have to understand the dark parts of myself. I have to understand what makes me sad and miserable in order to conquer it
Mm.
and love something, be that creating, be that a person, be that life itself.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot
Um,
to squeeze into 4 lines, but
yeah, no.
sort of get there vaguely. I think
Yeah.
people get the vibe more than they get the like literal meaning, but it's fine.
Right. Yeah, it's like that sounds so affirming. I don't actually know what it means. I need to ask you. Yeah. Um, let's talk about your music videos. You're a band that allows yourself to have fun, whether it's turning into to puppets on Hold Up Your Hearts Again or the fire effects of Dawnbreaker. Where are these concepts for your videos coming from?
Uh, I don't know. I wish I did.
Yeah.
It would be much easier, like mostly out of necessity at this point.
Yeah.
So when we did Dawnbreaker, we sort of knew that that was going to be the first single for ages, and we had apportioned like a bunch of money that we were going to spend on music videos. And initially, it was we knew what the singles were, and we were like, if we spend a little bit of money on Dawnbreaker, then we can spend loads of money and do like a full fantasy epic for Hold Up Your Hearts Again. And then we did Dawnbreaker first, and we were like, every time we sort of had an idea, we like booked someone in, and then the dates weren't right, and eventually it just got to the point where the budget had spiraled out of control for Dawnbreaker, and we were like booking lasers and stuff. And I just at that point I knew that I would have to do Hold Up Your Hearts Again entirely like in-house because we got somebody to help us with Dawnbreaker. It's the first time we've ever done a video like out of not it was just not me doing it basically.
Yeah.
So we did that. We got all the lasers. Cal really wanted lasers. Don't ask me why. He was just like lasers for Dawnbreaker.
Yeah.
It feels like lasers. So we got lasers. And that was fun. That was great. The rest of it we figured out on the day. And then Hold Up Your Hearts Again. Because I suddenly had to do this on no budget whatsoever, I was panicking, and we were playing our tour in September. And I ended up speaking to a friend who came to one of the shows. And I was like, I really don't know what we're gonna do for this music video. It would be so like just getting the other guys in the band is impossible. It might be easier to do it with puppets or something as a joke. And
Yeah.
they were like, I make puppets, right? And I was, oh, can you make me 4 puppets in 2 weeks?
Mhm.
The rest is 2 weeks of them stressing out, followed by like 3 hours of me fixing puppets as we continuously broke them on set. Ed's glasses falling off of the video, that was that was very not planned.
Yeah. That's I love the little dances you do at the end of the video when you
Thank
drink the
you.
potion. It's very endearing. Uh
I appreciate that.
Now your band has a pretty uplifting and kind of overtly positive approach to your themes and your writing that can be found, but isn't always kind of found in metal music. And for metal fans who may be a bit weary to your approach to the genre, how do you convince them? How do you sell this music to them?
It's a tough sell,
Yeah.
honestly. Like people are either really into it or really not into it. I think the thing that at the very least we try to do is that we try to make sure that our music is not happiness purely for the sake of happiness.
Hmm.
We like I as the only lyricist in the band, certainly. And I think even Cal, just from like a music writing perspective, and Sam certainly, there's no part of us that wants to write happy songs that are just like shallow happy, if you know
Right.
what I mean. We want to make songs that are happiness with like a purpose. They are like happiness as, or like joy or whatever sort of positive emotion as a way to deal with something that is relatable in your life or like, light through the darkness and is very much the theme of the new album. Like,
Yeah.
embrace it. Like Glint is about like questioning your self-worth, embracing that question and choosing to answer it, as opposed to just me telling you that you're worthy. It's like you have to go through this journey of the verses and the choruses to get to that post-chorus where it does say, like, I have always been worthy.
Yeah.
It doesn't start like that, and we always want that journey to be something that audiences like come along with us on, if you know what I mean. Other songs like "The Saint Beyond the River," which is my little baby, that song is about like, in a literal sense, it's about like looking in at a reflection of yourself in water. The
Yeah.
Saint Beyond the River is the version of yourself reflected from any like mirror or body of water, and seeing the sort of version of yourself that you want to be rather than the version that you are. Um, that's very much like there's joy in that song, there's happiness,
Hmm.
there's like affirmation in that song, but it comes from looking at yourself realistically. It comes from not ignoring your problems. It comes from dealing with them. And I think that's very much like how we approach it, at least. And maybe that like slightly takes off the curmudgeonly grumpiness of a lot of metal people who are just
Yeah.
like, I don't care for this happy garbage. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I agree, and I think your band. I think power metal as a subgenre as a whole. I mean, it is all about overcoming and conquering one's fears and valiancy and valor and personal battles that I think maybe the packaging is a little different, but those are all themes that you can find in an Iron Maiden or a Dio or
Mhm.
a Judas Priest song. It
100%.
it it totally makes sense, and it totally kind of follows the trajectory of like metal storytelling.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely.
Um, Now, when I got my promo copy of the record, um, I read through kind of the write-up, and it talked about how the band had took some influence from Japanese power metal, and I'm wondering kind of where that came out in the music, at least in your opinion.
Uh, so it's certainly not lyrically.
Okay.
I just sort of did my thing as I normally do.
Yeah,
Cal is so heavy into Galnerius
of
right
course.
now.
Yeah.
Um, like I think so. Cal and I are the band leaders, as it were.
Okay.
And Cal leads from like a music perspective. I lead from a sort of most other things perspective. And this basically means that how Cal feels and what Cal is listening to before the album starts being written kind of largely determines what the album's gonna sound like.
Yeah.
And before album one, he was in the super pop phase, and that's why album one sounds like a sort of rocked up pop album in a lot of ways. Just with a lot of like flouncy orchestration and
Yeah.
instrumentation and stuff. And then before this one, he was just obsessed with like Love Bites and Galnerius and Unlucky Morpheus. These are like his favorite bands at the
Oh
moment,
yeah.
and a lot of anime music. So all of that just turned up, and you look at Eternity, he actually borrowed some Japanese instruments.
Hmm.
If you look at things like the Bitter Winds, this like that's kind of like the closest this album has to an epic. Certainly the guitar solo is incredibly long, but that song generally follows a bit more of a sort of structural approach, a sort of chordal approach that you would find in Japanese power metal. there are flavors on the album that are very much like pure album one, like Hold Up Your Hearts Again. But then you also have Sam who listens to a lot of like Vocaloid music, Eurobeats as well, and you sort of
Yeah.
get some of that influence on songs like World Ends Slowly.
It's really funny you mentioned the anime aspect of this. So for a little context here, I work behind a bar,
Mhm.
and I sometimes get the aux, and so I'm often playing metal albums that I get away with. I'm not necessarily playing like death metal, but like stuff that came out recently that like
Mhm.
isn't gonna offend the crowd too much. And so your album was perfect. So I put it on one day. Dawnbreaker came up, and my coworker was like, "Oh, this sounds like it was from an anime." And I'm like, that makes sense. It does kind of fit the cadence a little
Oh yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the part of like us, no small part of this is that one of our dreams as a band, we have several like, a bucket list of a band. One of them is to write an anime OP. Like
Okay.
actually do that and be on an anime. Like that's
Yeah.
100% on the bucket list.
Does it have to be an anime, or would you be okay with like offering a track to like a JRPG or something of that nature?
That would be cool, but it doesn't I think it does have to be in it. To check it off the list,
Okay.
it has to be that.
All right. Understood. Well, I don't have any connection to that area, but I will if I hope the best for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll find our way in somehow.
Yeah. Um, Scarlet Records. I have a good relationship with them. I get most of their stuff sent my way. What's your experience with that label? It's a kind of a label that like specializes in kind of your sound, that power metal or like traditional heavy metal sound.
They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
We had a lot of issues when it came to releasing the first album, and they saved our butts in a lot of ways. Like we were gearing up to we had like a lot of things in the works, and everything fell through in a bad way in the last minute. And it was nobody's fault. It was just one of those like stuff happened, life happened, and
Yeah.
everything fell apart. And we were gonna end up either sitting on this album for another year or we were going to have to self-release, and none of us had the bandwidth or like any ability to do that, any knowledge really of how to do
Mm,
that. So Scarlett had spoken to us like a year and a half prior, and we hadn't said like no to them, but we hadn't committed to anything. And they just said like, your terms. We just want to help. And
yeah.
we're just going to do everything we can to help you without, we're not going to take this opportunity to put you in some like stranglehold contract or anything like that. They were super fair, super kind. They have been consummate professionals for the entire duration of the contract that we signed, which is now at an end.
Yeah.
But lovely. We could not have a better relationship with them. And Angelo and Phil, who are sort of main two guys at Scarlet, just wonderful. Also, check out the Grimheart record. It's one of my favorite releases in the last like year and a bit.
Okay.
They put out some really, really good stuff. Really,
Yeah.
really big fans.
Um, Whenever I see comments about your band, another band that you often get compared to is Twilight Force. Is that a good thing to feel like you're compared to them?
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you kidding? Twilight Force are amazing.
Yeah.
We're super happy with that, and we're really
Yeah.
like Cal and Lind are personally like just really good friends. Like I've
Okay.
been to Lynn's house. Like
Okay.
we're good buddies, so
Yeah.
we're very happy with that. Um, Obviously Lind is no longer in Twilight Force, but like we love everyone. I know Kristen now. Like we're all buddies. We've done a tour together. Everything's
Mm.
grand. Um, but Twilight Force is kind of how Fellowship started in a weird way. Like before Cal and Sam met, Cal was just hanging out in the Twilight Force Discord. And I
Oh
think in
wow.
one of their channels, they had a like post your music thing, and he posted like a little ditty that he wrote. And Lind was said something to him and started messaging him, being like, "Hey, this is really good. But you should do something with." And I think Cal was just messing around before that. And then
Mhm.
Lind was like, no, Lind was like the encouraging force that sort of took Cal from an idle power metal dreamer to in an actual power metal band. So yeah, like we couldn't be more happy to be compared to Twilight Force. We know how we're
That's
different from them as well. Like we're
yeah.
not just a carbon copy. We are Twilight Force in a lot of ways, but we're also like a lot of other things, and we know that, and we're happy
Yeah.
with it.
No, no, and you're not. I mean, I think Twilight Force um is very much they're trying to be the fairy tale band.
Mm.
And you're doing something different, as though I think there are like you could see Sonic
Oh
comparisons
yeah,
also. Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Um that is a crazy origin story. Just posting another band's Discord and them telling you, do that. That is awesome. It is cool to get affirmation like that from
Hmm.
someone that you're so inspired by. I love that story.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so for those watching who may not already be into power metal, but are a metal fan, um, can you give my viewers some of your favorite bands to check out in that vein?
Oh, so this is quite hard because I was recruited into power metal. I'm not like a true blue power metaler. I'm from a different walk of life musically. I used to be a professional opera singer.
Okay.
I did prog for a number of years. I know pop punk almost encyclopedically. Um, to my sin, that's my sin. That's that I have to
Yeah.
live with that. Um, but within power metal, the stuff that I've like discovered since joining this band that I really love.
Yeah.
Um, I think I mentioned Grimheart earlier. I really dig Grimheart. They're like kind of almost deathy, but with they write in exclusively like major keys. So you
Mm,
get this sort of like positive, almost like a vibe rather than a melody coming
sure.
through this very harsh instrumentation, which I think is really cool. Um, Anything else that like my favorite band of all time is Moron Police. So that's like a sort of proggy, folky power metal adjacent band, but they, as a band, also have another band which is exactly the same members called Boys of Battle, who are true power metal.
Exceptional.
Um, and they are, I mean, they recorded their debut record through several potatoes. It is one of the worst recorded things you will ever hear, but the music is incredible. Um, there's a little known if you want like a real hidden gem power metal recommendation. This is the one that you should listen to if you like our stuff. Above the Sky by the band March and Station, who are a
Okay.
Japanese power metal band that Cal and I, one of the first things that Cal and I bonded over when I joined the band in power metal was our shared love of a band called March and Station, who are not available on basically any streaming service. You can find their stuff on YouTube at best, and half of it isn't there. But the song
Exceptional.
Above the Sky is has the greatest solo that has ever been written. It is like a 3 minute jazz power metal keyboard, like piano hybrid
Yeah.
solo, and it is untouchable.
You heard it here first. You are getting an obscure band to check out. There is no there is very little scraps of them on the internet. So if you want to sound cool to your other metal friends, you got to go check out this band apparently.
March and
Um,
Station, they rock. They're so good.
you mentioned an opera background. I think that makes sense because thinking of other power metal bands, I'm pretty sure Brittany from Unleash the Archers
Mhm.
also has an opera background. So I think that like there is a overlap between people who do opera and classical music and people who do power metal. I think that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, Matt, that was all I had planned to ask you, but before I let you go, I want to give you the floor for any last words and also just tell people where they can find your music if they're not already plugged into your band. Give socials, give all that, tell people when you're playing next. Go for it.
So, if you want to find our band anywhere, we are Fellowship Metal on Instagram, on like Facebook, TikTok, anything you like,
Hmm.
Fellowship Metal, just one word, you will find us there. We are playing shows in Europe. We announced a tour today. So we are going out in April for the whole of the month with Frozen Crown as their like second support.
Oh, hell
So
yeah.
second on the billing, which is going to be such a good time. We're playing a bunch of shows with Glory Hammer in the end of January, beginning of February across the UK. We're playing two Germany shows in the 3 days after Christmas, which is going to be a hell of a good time. Come to Epic Fest if you can. Um, and because I know that there are some people, a very small but precious to me contingent of people who care about the Fellowship novels, um, the second one should be arriving end of February. That's my goal. I'm hoping to get it done for the end of February. It's not a promise. It's just a goal, and the more I say it in interviews, the more I have to stick to it. The more I have to write this thing.
Hell yeah.
It's like halfway done. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and maybe reread the first one if you're so inclined. In the meantime,
Cool. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. For everyone watching at home, of course, thank you to my patron to keep the show running. Check out the new Fellowship record, The Skies Above Eternity. I highly recommend it. Uh, Keep it metal. As always, my name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I'm out of here. Bye.
bye.